Good afternoon, everybody. We're joined by Coach Leach. We're going to open it up for questions. Again, if you do not have a question, we'll ask that you keep your mic muted. If you do, go ahead and put your name in the chat and I'll call on you. We're going to get started today with David.
Yes, Coach. I know you don't make opening statements, but can you give us kind of an overview how you feel about your first full recruiting class here?
Well, this is, you bring up a great point because this is one of the exceptions. I actually usually do make an opening statement in this one. Okay, so first of all, I'm very proud of our staff, Dave Emmerich in particular, for coordinating the recruiting effort. I thought our coaches hit the ground running, worked really hard, and especially with the challenges of not being able to see too many people face to face. And, you know, in this class, obviously, we're not done yet, which that's by design. A portion of that's by design because I think this is a volatile year and there's going to be some more quality guys out there. And we wanted to have a little bit of flexibility there. In particular, I thought we fortified the offensive line, fortified the receivers, and then we've got some, some guys we're still working on defensively, and but I was impressed with some of those guys in the front. Our class this year, of course, is Cannon Boone, offensive lineman, 6'4", 280, might be even bigger than that. Kemah, Texas, Dickinson High School. Gabe Cavazos, offensive lineman, 6'4", 280, Lake Cormont, Mississippi, and went to Lake Cormont High School. Randy Charlton, defensive lineman, 6'4", 250, great feet. Goulds, Florida, Miami Southridge, and then transferred from UCF. Corey Ellington, DB, 6'3", 180, Lexington, Mississippi, Holmes County Central, a nice long DB there. Daniel Greek, he may be bigger than this too, actually. 6'4", 220, Argyle, Texas, went to Liberty Christian. Antonio Harmon, wide receiver, 6'3", 200. Well, how do you say that? Kosciuszko. Kosciuszko, Mississippi, went to Kosciuszko High School. Nick Jones, offensive lineman, 6'3", 275. Byhalia, Mississippi, went to East Mississippi Community College. And Teddy Knox, wide receiver, 5'11", 170, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana originally, but goes to the Woodlands in down around Houston. Extremely fast player. John Lewis, linebacker, 6'3", 220, Kent, Mississippi, went to Germantown. Trayvon Marshall, defensive lineman, 6'4", 215, McDonough, Georgia, went to Locust Grove. Nick Mitchell, linebacker, 6'2", 215, Jacksonville, Florida, went to Mandarin. Jacoby Moore, wide receiver, 6'2", 200, Gulfport, Mississippi, went to Harrison Central. Deshaun Page, linebacker, 6'2", 225, Knoxville, Tennessee, and went to East Mississippi Community College. Simeon Price, running back, 6 feet, 210, and all very versatile, can play a lot of positions, and type of guy you can move around too. As far as, sticking him in the slot, sticking him in the backfield, and moving him back and forth to either one. 6 feet, 210, Pensacola, Florida, went to West Florida. Albert Reese. Albert Reese is an offensive lineman, 6'7", 315, from Edmonton, Alberta, but went to high school in Clearwater, Florida at Academy International. Sawyer Robertson, quarterback, 6'4", 200, from Lubbock, Texas, went to Lubbock Coronado. Tamar Rogers, linebacker, 6'1", 195, from DeLand, Florida, went to DeLand High School. Carson Williams, offensive lineman, 6'5", 300, from Forest, Mississippi, and went to Mississippi Gulf Coast. Okay, any questions from there?
So just looking at the recruiting effort in general, you feel generally satisfied about getting this group in, and what's your plans to fill those spots remaining?
Well, we're still recruiting. We're on a number of guys, and then also some may be announced later too. But we're going to see what unfolds as as the dust settles in January, and obviously the transfer portal as well.
Next, we'll go to Ben.
Mike, I know you guys pulled in a pretty good haul today, but I know there were a couple of guys that flipped. What do you kind of attribute that to, and how do you plan on going and filling those holes, at least from those guys like Malik Neighbors and MJ Daniels?
Well, I think we got our eye out for other guys, and we're dialogue with other people as well, at both of those positions. And so, and that continues. And then also, in particular with the DBs, may look at some transfers as well.
And just a quick follow-up, you guys pulled in, I think, more guys that a Mississippi State class has ever, at least in the last 20 years, from Texas and Florida. I guess in terms of geography, how much was that something that you guys looked at, or just kind of was a product of who you guys were going after?
I think it's a product of two things. The first thing, we try to shoot for the 4-hour radius of Starkville, as I would say is our general approach, and where we try to be most aggressive, that 4-hour radius, because then people can come back and forth, go to the game. And then also in the Southeast region, where people have an identity with the SEC, then it kind of spreads out from there. And then there's a certain number of players nationally that, that may like what we do, or may be familiar with coaches on our staff and things of that nature. And so we're certainly not going to close that door, but they have to have a genuine interest to come here and be a part of what we're doing. So, we don't want to exclude it as a resource by any stretch, but most aggressively the 4-hour radius of here.
Steve?
Which some of those Florida guys are. Well, certainly Simeon is,
Coach, two of the first commitments you got as Mississippi State's head coach was Sawyer Robertson and Daniel Greek. What was it about those two guys that appealed to you?
Very good passers, great arms, tall guys, and both are going to get even bigger. And, and both had a pretty significant body of work as far as their success in high school. They weren't just kind of, 1-year wonder kind of guys.
We'll go to John.
Mike, can you a little bit more specifics with Sawyer? I know you mentioned his mechanics a little earlier in a video I saw, but what about him quarterback wise really impressed you, and what do you think his kind of ceiling is, and do you really expect him to kind of contribute right away?
Well, he's very efficient. The ball comes off his hand quickly. He's got good feet in the pocket. Good to the point where he's fairly mobile. And then, his touchdowns to interception ratio is off the charts. So, and he's still playing. When's he play? I think he plays Friday. It's either Friday or Saturday.
And then a quick follow-up to that, just generally with this whole group, kind of building off the last question, how much of these guys do you expect to kind of contribute right away and kind of build off what you're doing right away? Or do you just see this kind of being as a group where it'll take a couple of years for them to really get acclimated?
Well, the JC guys and the transfers, you hope that they can contribute right away. The freshmen, you never know. I mean, based on this year, it looks like they can all play at the rate we're playing freshmen. But I think that, and I've been historically terrible at predicting whether freshmen will play early. And I think most people are, because whoever's your most talented freshman in the class, may go on to be an All-American or something like that. But it may take them a year or two to get adjusted and to settle in. And then, but I've always found that the guys that contribute early are those that, they do what got them there. They're not afraid to go in and do what got them there, and they don't struggle with that college adjustment thing. One guy that's kind of like that here now is Jaden Wally. I mean, Wally kind of didn't break stride from high school, and I think just having the presence of mind and the comfort and confidence and knowing that hey, I wouldn't be here if my abilities weren't pretty good, and they recruited me and my abilities. And so what I can already do, I need to do that full speed and then build on it as I go. Those are the guys that contribute first. Sometimes just the adjustment, I think a quick way to say it is some guys make a little more out of being in college than it truly is initially. And they just need to settle down and play, and you'll see it. Well, the ultimate example that I've seen over the years is you'll have a receiver who's got great hands and the ball's flying through the air, and in high school, just incredible hands, great hands. Okay, now it really doesn't matter if that ball's flying in the air from a jugs machine, an all-pro quarterback, or a 12-year-old that can at least put a little zip on the ball. Ball goes through the air, catch it, and then you'll see them go to college, and then they'll struggle with their hands, for a period of time where nothing's really changed. And then I've had guys that, tear it up catching the ball all through college. Then they'll go to the NFL and they'll, they'll drop it for a period of time. Well, the only thing that's changed is what's running through their head. I mean, because the ball's flying through the air and put your hands up and you catch it,
Joel?
Mike, I've heard coaches say before that recruiting is recruiting, and I've heard other coaches say it's a little bit different in the SEC. I guess with your first class as a head coach in the SEC, was there anything different about recruiting in this league as opposed to what you may have encountered at Texas Tech and Washington State and dealing with these recruiting battles in the SEC?
You don't have to travel nearly as far. You don't have to travel nearly as far, which I would say that's a good thing. This year wasn't really a perfect sample year from the standpoint, we're locked away here in our complex, and to varying degrees, they're locked away, in their hometown, doing the thing from there on this whole remote stuff where, you guys, just like we talked about the other day, are cheerfully locked in your cubby hole looking at a screen all the time. I think it's closer. More players know players on your team and no players out there getting recruited. So I think that can make it volatile sometimes. If somebody out there's up to some hijinks, I mean, I don't know for sure. Of course, anytime something doesn't go your way, that's the first. People sometimes will fall back on that. Whether it's true or not. But and then I didn't really, with the most important thing with recruiting, and I think is always the most important thing, is persistence and people. People go somewhere to play football where they want to work. I think it starts with the people and that they have the opportunity to work with and things like that. And just like recruiters, I've found them to come in all shapes and sizes. Everybody thinks it's the kind of the sharp, slick, real articulate guy. And then I've had some guys that were just outstanding recruiters that no one would ever guess, but I think persistence is really key.
Tyler?
Mike, you said a few times coming into today that you felt like your class was a little bit ahead of schedule and you liked where you guys were at. Just wondering after what's happened today, if you still feel that way or if something's changed and you guys feel a little pressured to get somewhere else by February.
Well, we have we have several more scholarships to give, so we definitely, I would say by May, because some of the transfer stuff happens later. Definitely, I guess I see it this way. At this point, our class is what it is, so there's no real ahead of schedule at this point. Now, just the objective of filling the other scholarships, and we want a number of them filled by February, but still I wouldn't rule out keeping a few back and seeing what transpires as far as transfers and things after spring football.
Next, we'll go to Gary.
Hey, Coach, you alluded to the changes that this year brought on in terms of the recruiting approach, but can you look back on the changes or how you had to adapt to it, and how satisfied are you with the class, in terms of how you looked at ways to go about recruits, especially not being able to meet with them in person?
Well, yeah, there was a number of meetings and stuff around here, and in the end, it seemed like most schools did it about the same way. How you could really show your program and kind of, present, sizzle, get the sizzle in the thing as far as, hey, this is a great place and a great opportunity, but you have to do it all without being face to face. So there was, just a certain amount of kind of graphics and meetings on, the remote computer stuff and, kind of just sort of the virtual computer stuff the best you could, and, but, it was, it was tight enough with regard to, people couldn't come on campus and things like that, that all you could really do was, have pretty good graphics and conversations with, your staff and things like that with who you're recruiting.
We'll go back to Ben.
Mike, with Sawyer committed for baseball and football, I guess I'm just curious, how do you see him kind of balancing that, and how much do you guys have to work with the baseball staff and just being a quarterback in your system and what they ask them to do? I mean, how much do you see him being able to do that and balancing two Division I sports at a really high level?
Well, we'll see. We'll just have to see what happens. I mean, it's challenging. I've had guys do it though. I've had. Our starting receiver was also the center fielder there at Texas Tech. But it is tough, and and almost the the sports are hard enough, but then the academics in the midst of it.
Steve?
Coach Simeon Price, not your stereotypical running back, and a guy that's kind of got a running back build, but a wide receiver pedigree. What was it about him that kind of attracted you? What makes him a good fit for your scheme?
Among other things, I mean, I guess the player that was an example, and we saw a lot of him in the Big 12, but he's kind of a Jeremy Maclin kind of guy, if you remember him. Played at Missouri, and then they'd move him all over the field, and just that kind of versatility.
We've got time for just a few more. We're going to go to Dalton.
Coach, kind of the same question as Steve just asked, but what do you kind of think about Antonio Harmon and what kind of drew you to him?
Well, I think that, first of all, he's a big guy. We like that. He's a big target. And that's the other thing with the receivers, besides the fact we're able to get some speed. We also got some size. And I think he's a real good example of that. And, just a very coordinated, fluid guy with good ball skills and fairly aggressive about going to get it,
David?
Coach, you signed 5 offensive linemen. I know various sites list them as primarily tackles, but how do you project these 5 linemen filling in the spots on that whole group?
Get as many tackles as you possibly can and then play the best 5, you know. Because I think, then you just figure out the best way to get them on the field. And then, I think all these guys will be able to put on good positive weight. And then, and generally they already have pretty good feet. And that's why you kind of like recruiting tackles because, a lot of times they have, good feet. So, yeah. And, in high school, in many cases, they're better offensive linemen plays tackles, either one,
Does that footwork you talk about, is that factor into specifically pass protection and what you like to do in offense?
Well, I don't think there's any substitute for footwork. I think you always need that, and you want it as good as you can get. I mean, and around here, we're kind of psycho about making these guys jump rope in the off season, and which we didn't get a full dose of that this year, with it being hit and miss. And yeah, we're constantly trying to develop feet, and I'd say probably more than anything.
We'll wrap up today with Joel.
Mike, kind of a quick, I guess not really a signing day question, but I guess maybe a signing question. News broke yesterday that, of course, Zach Arnett has a new extension with you guys. I guess I would just ask, how much of an emphasis has that been to try and get Zach on board with an extension or something, and just kind of your general overall thoughts on how big that is, I guess, to try and keep him around on your staff for a little while.
Well, we're just really excited about the job that he does. I mean, he brings a lot of energy, enthusiasm. He's aggressive, and no, we want Zach to be here for a long time.